So again, back to some file system commands. I can go to different directories. I can get my working directory, show files. I can make directories. I can move files around. I can remove directories. So most of your basic command shell functionality is enabled in Meterpreter itself. I've also got networking commands. So even though I already know the IP address, I can certainly list it again. Right, 129, that's my remote system. That's Metasploitable. Maybe I want to do something else. Maybe I want to run netstat-rn to look at my ports that are listening and maybe see some information about established connections. All right, so netstat-ans give me the same information. I can also run other commands like what's my routing table? What's in my ARP cache? The ARP cache right now I've only been connected to from the Kali instance, which is .131. But if you were connecting to a system that was being used by lots of other people, displaying the ARP cache is very useful because now I can see other systems that are connecting because their IP address and the MAC address are saved in this cache, this ARP cache. I can look at route information. I can see what my default gateway is, .2 in this case. IPv6 information is also available if I was interested in that. So being able to poke around in the file system is pretty handy. I can also do things like uploading and downloading files. So for instance, if I want to, now I have to have the permission to read a file. So if I do an ls in my current directory, I can see that I've got some globally readable files, it looks like. So I can try to do something like download server.cert. And we can see that actually worked. And if this is a certificate file, and we'll get into some of these things later, then that could be really useful. Now, where does this file go? I'll switch to my other command shell. And if I go to my downloads directory on my given system, actually, that's not where it went. Maybe it went to root itself. There it is. So it did not go to my downloads directory. So it goes to whatever directory you launch your console from. And I was already in root when I did that. So I don't need this file. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Control page up to switch back to my other tab. Remember your shortcuts. So uploading, downloading files. I can also edit a file. It's going to look like my certificates here. This is probably my public cert. So it basically throws you into like a VI type editor, which is very handy if you don't want to have to pull a file back, edit the file, push it back out. That increases the odds of getting detected, right? So we want to always think about taking the action that's required in the way that creates the minimum amount of traceable events. So other things to think about, if I'm in my shell, my Meterpreter shell, I also have the ability to run all kinds of post exploits. And I can do that by using the run command. There it is. So executing a script, executing a post module. For instance, I might want to see if I can get a hash dump from this system. Even though I know the Postgres password, that's not the administrator password. I might have to do some other work in order to be able to get the root password or some other valuable things. Tab completion does not work in a context like this, unfortunately, so I have to know what I'm typing in. But I'm going to try to run, actually this is not a Windows system, that won't work. Let me do this real quick. I'll background this session, and I'll do a search for posts. It's going to give me a lot of information, but I might be able to find post for Linux if I scroll up here. There's post for multi. Looks like Linux gather hash dump might be a good choice. I'll go ahead and copy that. Might have been faster to do a search for hash dump itself. That's a shorter list. I know that's what I want to do, so now I can go through and I can find the one that I was interested in. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to session 1, which is the one that Meterpreter session is enabled. And what I can do is I can try to run this hash dump, see if it actually works. Oh, see, it doesn't work. I have to be root in order for that one to work, which makes sense. All right, so we're seeing some of the limitations of the kind of command shell that you have. I have a Meterpreter shell, which is useful, but it only lets me run commands that the Postgres user account is authorized to run. And this traces us back to the idea of the principle of least privilege, right? I don't want to run Postgres as root. If I did that, and I also did not change the password, or there was some other vulnerability, now when I get a compromise the application or compromise the command, or rather the credentials, if the Postgres ID has root type privileges, now I can do other powerful things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So there's good reasons for respecting the principle of least privilege. You don't want to get overly generous with doling out privileges when you're building a system for obvious reasons. I also might want to, for instance, run some commands to see what processes are running on that remote system. So I just did a PS command, and it basically gives you full PS output. And this way I can tell with some detail what's actually running on that remote system. Process ID numbers, parent process IDs, the name, and any paths that are relevant would all be shown here. I notice I've got a bunch of things running. I've got some applications, dist ccd, or rather dist cc, the daemon for that. I've got an Apache web server running. Got some Ruby components running. So there's a lot of things. Looks like I've got VNC running. So there's a lot of clues that I've just uncovered for how I might go about further compromising this system. And I haven't even done a scan yet. I just happen to take a guess that the Postgres database would have a default password, and it does. So I'm able to get in and get all of this information. Let's run our help command one more time. Other things we can do, I showed a few things, like running a shell, PS command. I can kill the process if I have permission to do so. I can execute commands. I can even set up port forwarding, which might be useful depending on your needs at the time. And there's some other options I'm looking at for like encoding, setting timeouts. There are ways to try to get a picture from the webcam. I don't see that option in this context. But other things to think about. I can suspend a process. I can also run the sysinfo command to give me a concise output, kind of like a uname-a command would do on a Unix system. Gives me some good details here for what I would be, other details I want to track for this remote system to know that I've got something truly useful. All right, so we'll definitely explore more features of the Meterpreter shell as we go through some of the demonstrations, but this is a good introduction. All right, see you in the next video.